Yep, we are. We're good to go. Go ahead, Samir.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us here. We are the Gamer Curry Podcast. We're a relatively new gaming channel here on Twitch. We're a podcast that talks about gaming, technology. We try to bring on guests. So we had our first guest come on at the last podcast. That was about 2 weeks ago. We have a YouTube channel you can check out below. And today we're just going to have a quick discussion on some takeaways that we had from our last podcast, some new games that we're excited about, as well as a reaction cast for the new Oddworld game that just came out recently. So I hope you guys can stay with us through this podcast. And if you have any questions, feel free to post something in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get started, Sameep. My name is
Yeah.
Samir, by the way. And here is my co-host, Sameep.
Yeah, I'm Samir too, I guess. No, I'm Samir,
Sorry, I'm getting
guys.
an echo from the Twitch. I just
Oh,
muted
okay.
it.
Oh, okay, okay. So, today we want to first start off. So, Samir, I know that you mentioned right before we began you're trying some new drinks out. So, you want to tell me what you're drinking right now?
So it's not alcoholic. Actually, this recently came out. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but it's Pepsi Mango, and I got it from Target, and it's pretty good. I'm honestly pleased with the way they've, I guess, put together this drink. They did a good job.
Nice. Well, for me, I don't drink soda that much. I have tried it though. My sister did get some, and I did take a sip. It's actually pretty solid. It's pretty good all around. I do like mango too, so I agree. That is pretty tasty. But right now, I am a big coffee drinker. So right now, I have my own like Keurig that I have at home, and like I have a Keurig pod, and this is a Starbucks vanilla French vanilla that I drink, and so I add in a little bit of sugar-free creamer, and yeah, that's about it. I drink it pretty plain usually, but the creamer usually makes it taste a little bit better. But yeah, that's what I'm drinking right now. And we thought starting off with that. So if you guys are drinking something too and you're watching this, feel free to put in the chat. And I believe Samir has a special guest.
Yeah, so it's my dog. She might, join us at some point in the podcast, and you'll see her. She's a special guest. She doesn't talk very much, so that's just a warning. But yeah, so that's going to be our special guest, and she'll just pop in, every once in a while.
All right. Yeah. Just like we mentioned, we want to let everyone know before in advance that we tend, or our tentative schedule right now is to do a podcast every 2 weeks, and try to hit a Friday or a Saturday. Sometimes we kind of get busy with our stuff and we have to delay it. So please forgive us if you're looking forward to an episode. And the other thing is, next month there might be maybe a leeway about a week or two because I have to go in and get a minor surgery. So I'll be out for a few weeks, and I will try to get back to doing podcasting with Samir at some point, and we'll try not to delay anything, and we'll try to keep everything on track. So I just want to give everyone a heads up on that. But right now, we also want to mention that we do have a YouTube channel. It's called the Gamer Curry Podcast, which is the name of the YouTube channel. And I think Samir, do you mind dropping the link in the chat for people if they want to visit it? So
Yeah, let me
here's
post it in the chat real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. So the thing is, we tend to record these. Actually, not. Yeah. Well, Twitch will actually record this for us and process it, and then what Samir does after this is he takes the video, breaks it down into parts, and uploads it to. Oh, do you want to go ahead and let her introduce herself, Samir?
Yeah, she's pretty quiet. This is Sadie. She's a mini golden. She's pretty mini size. She's 2 years old, even though she looks like she's a puppy. She's an
So
old soul.
you guys are lucky, man. Like, I really want a dog. I really want a German Shepherd, and I love dogs. And dude, you're lucky, man. Like, I'm serious, man. It's your girlfriend's dog, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay, nice. But as I was mentioning, guys, these videos, if you do miss them, remember we always upload them to the YouTube channel, so you're always welcome to check it out. And we break it down for you to skip around on parts because we know most people don't want to watch the entire podcast, and we understand that. Now, Samir, I know you wanted to talk about something. Hey, Samir, I think you're muted.
Okay, how about that? Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so we in the podcast, if you watched it, we briefly had talked about this new game. Oh, we talked about this video game franchise that Professor Powers really likes, and that's the Oddworld series. He talked about the reasons he likes that, and it actually worked out really nicely. We had brought that up as a topic, or he had brought that up as a topic because just recently, the new Oddworld game came out. So we thought it would be a great opportunity to react to this video game commentary that was posted on IGN just a few days ago. So that's what we're going to do real quick is we're going to watch it, and then when we're watching it, we might pause it and react a little bit to it. And we guys hope you enjoy it. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it already, but it's really cool to see a game developer's perspective on a video game, especially a playthrough of the video game. So this is what this video has. I saw like maybe a few seconds of it, but I was like, I paused it. And I was like, this would be great to show on our podcast. So that's what we're gonna do.
Yep. Let me go ahead and I'll share it directly in this Discord. And can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
There we go. Got to change it really quick. All right. There we go. And let's play this.
Hi, I'm Lorne Lanning, creator of Oddworld, and this is an IGN exclusive Oddworld Soulstorm level reveal.
I just want to say one thing. I love how they always start off with IGN exclusive to everything, even though it's probably everywhere else.
Trellis. In Soulstorm, we wanted each level to begin with a greater sense of epic scale. A camera system and a 2.9D system and more graphics rendering capability than we'd had in the past would allow us to introduce the level to the player, sort of shortening their conceptual distance between where they are and where they need to get to. And this we would do by moving the camera around in classic game-orienting ways. But we wanted to do it while sustaining the ability of the 2.5D control system, but carry on to a greater dimension and more epic scale through what we call the 2.9D. In this case, we have to rescue the Mudokons from a caged mine down below that they're trying to get out of, and you need to lead them back to the train. That's the mission. We also wanted to increase the player's need and desire to explore more in the environments that we were hoping to make larger than levels in our previous games. And
I want to say that I do like that they added that. Well, because I played Oddworld games, the very old ones, and I know that they're extremely linear. I do, because in my opinion, or personally, I love when games add in more depth into the game where you have to go out of the way to explore, because I like getting lost and exploring stuff. I know that Oddworld tends to be still linear, and it might be limited, but that's kind of nice that they added that in. I personally enjoy that. I don't know about you, Samir.
Yeah, I really appreciate their flexibility. So I remember playing the Oddworld game back on when it was on the Xbox. So I appreciate how the franchise is willing to experiment with the same, for series.
Yeah.
So in this case, it's a platformer, and it looks like they're adding their own little spin to the platformer, genre.
Yep.
Here,
nice.
We were also introducing more of a player wallet economy and collectibles, but the collectibles were really towards crafting. And so we kept it to what I would call crafting light, which was intended to widen the range of ways that you could solve a puzzle and also give you a reward for the exploration and collecting that you had done. In this case, Abe has crafted a smoke screen, which essentially gives him a hide zone that he can place anywhere for a more stealthy, non-aggressive approach. The craftables can typically be used at their base level, which means no crafting. You got something from a vending machine, or you're mixing that with more elements and you're winding up with something more powerful. In this case, Abe is just getting a rock candy, and that's a base item that'll be leveled up later. But it gives.
I got a question. Samir, since you said you played it more recently or remember playing it, was there crafting in the original games?
I don't remember there being crafting, but it's been a long time since I played it. So I was on the original Xbox.
Okay. Because I feel like since they're emphasizing the crafting, this is the first time I've ever heard of it. I don't know if this game had crafting, but I think them adding the crafting ability or just crafting at the crafting aspect will help the game just gameplay wise, just because you can do so much more. Because if they branch out with the gameplay style, they can reach more people, and I think that's always a good opportunity. So it gives more range and flexibility with the game.
Gives him a offensive throwable that can at least knock characters unconscious if you hit them enough times. Here Abe finds his first follower from the old trellis area. So you'll notice in Soulstorm we added what we call slig poles, like a fire station where a slig can now actually go between levels. In this case, a slig is down below. He normally wouldn't have a firing range on you, but in waking him up by drawing attention, by speaking to this follower, the slig will start to climb the pole. When he comes off the pole, he becomes deadly. And in this case, that gets Abe killed. And with our highly frequent degree of checkpoints, when Abe dies, he is born pretty close to the problem that whacked him. So now Abe's going to approach the problem again, but this time use the stealthier approach. Players will also notice that we added another dimension to Abe's stealth ability, which is anytime you're stealthing around, his game speak will also be whispered. So you can game speak other characters in stealth mode, but you're going to have to retain yourself at a sneaking pace. So to be used cautiously.
I do like that. Okay, so what I really like is that they're emphasizing stealth, and I know that the game kind of has always emphasized that. I'm just a huge stealth fan. Like, I love stealth games. I actually think the first stealth game that I thoroughly enjoyed was probably Splinter Cell. I forgot the name, there's a very few one. I really enjoyed the Splinter Cell series. The original ones that were on the Xbox back in like 2006, 2007, and then Metal Gear Solid 4 is where I first got to experience like stealth games, and ever since then I've always favored stealth in any game. So if the game has an aspect of stealth, I personally enjoy it. And I don't know about you if that's your playstyle, but I like that the fact that they're emphasizing the crap out of stealth right now.
Yeah, I think usually you don't see too much stealth in platformer games.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see that. I mean, there are like a handful of games that I've played that have had stealth, and usually like they're very memorable.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on the implementation. But I think this is kind of nice because of the graphics that this game has. But I guess I'm interested in seeing what else they have.
Yeah, and yes, I do want to mention this game does look really nice for a platformer. I mean, for this day and age, it looks very good. Also, Samir, I was going to ask, could you keep an eye on the chat and see if people have comments on there?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to see if I can pop it out.
Now, earlier in this path, Abe had scavenged out of some lockers some tape. And tape has a special purpose in here because we have the ability to choose a lethal or non-lethal option to deal with characters, not only through stealth, but also through do we kill them or do we have a way to neutralize them without harming them, which would be better for Abe's ultimate score, which is his karma, which is earned through the accumulation of his deeds. And here you'll see...
So, first of all, like I was telling you, like, I like stealth games, and what is that? That reminds me, like, I know other stealth games have this, but I always think back to MGS, where you either
Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, Metal Gear Solid. And I always think back how you can pacify or you can kill the person, and you have the option to. And there's so many playstyles that you can come out with that. Like, you can complete... And I'm assuming you can probably play this game completely like stealth, where you don't kill a single person. And I honestly think that's pretty sweet, because there's probably some arc, like they were mentioning, he has karma, which is probably just karma. And like, basically good versus bad. There might be a simplistic style where there's like two different branches of endings to the game. So
I'm not sure. That's something that I guess I'm curious about now, is if they've incorporated that mechanism in the game.
Yeah. I agree.
Rock candy has a certain value, but you want to enhance upon that. So we enable that if you find, say, rubber bands, you're able to create bounces that are added that will bounce. And you can use, it's kind of like pool. You can use angle degrees to bounce and stay in a safe zone while dealing with dangerous enemies without making yourself vulnerable to getting shot up. When choosing a non-lethal approach, it's usually a character sleeping or you've knocked them unconscious. You have the ability to bind them. You can loot them. In all of these, you have wake-up times, unconscious timeouts, things that are creating time pressures for you to try to achieve a non-lethal approach before they wake up without getting your guys killed. Essentially, ways to increase the tension on your moment-by-moment encountering with enemies.
Can you pause that?
Yeah.
I think that brings up a funny thing about the non-lethal approach consistently in video games. You'll always like notice how the non-lethal approach is almost always harder. Like I think always harder than the lethal approach. Every video game that I've played.
Oh yeah, I mean, I agree because like it. First of all, it takes more effort into actually, going about pacifying the person instead of killing them. Because with killing them, you have so many tools to do that. Like, you can probably use a throwing knife. You can probably get behind them, choke them out. You can probably get behind them, kill them. Like, you can think of so many possibilities depending on the game and what it is where you can kill the person very quickly. But if you think about the stealth approach where you want to not kill anyone or you want to pacify them, you have, like, very few options. But what I've noticed that this game is doing, Oddworld, Soulstorm, is that they're taking the emphasis on pacification and they're emphasizing it. Well, from what this guy's talking about so far.
Yeah. I mean, there are some exceptions that, now that I think about it, usually they are kind of like in Fallout games or, let's say, Outer Worlds, that game, where you focus on that part of your skill tree. You focus on the dialogue component where you invest heavily on that part. So then it makes those interactions easier in the event that you want to take the passive approach or non-lethal approach.
That's true.
But generally, I think as a rule of thumb, generally, you'll notice that the non-lethal approach is more difficult, more time-consuming.
Yep. I agree. It is very, very much so. It's actually kind of frustrating when you're trying to actually play the game and not kill anyone. And you might get to the point where you're just like, oh, well, I killed them. Who cares now? Just move on.
Yeah.
Oh, baby, let's go!
Now Abe's made it to the bottom of the level where he can get access to all of the laborers that he needs to rescue out of the caged up mine. And this he was separated from earlier in the story. But you'll see how our 2.9D is connecting. It's going from an optimal 2.5D playing path, and then it starts going into curve paths that are using the dimensional environment better, but the control system isn't changing at all. And that was quite a challenge for us to sort of sustain the classic playability, but get a lot more dimension into the cinematic look of the world and the sense of journey being thicker into the world.
Yeah, that 2.5D view is a trip. It's really interesting to see that. I don't see very many video games incorporate this view style.
Yeah. So, Samir, I want to ask you, do you know what 2.5D exactly is versus 2.9D and like the dimensions that he's talking about?
I didn't know there was a 2.9D.
Yeah, neither did I.
I thought it was just two-dimensional or three-dimensional.
Yeah,
so you said there's a 2.9D as well?
he was saying that there's a 2.9D. That's what he kept saying when they were transitioning from going from the, let's call this, the way that they're going right now is the X plane, and this is the outwards plane. So let's call it the Z. So when he said when they transitioned from the X to the Z, he said that was a 2.9D transition, and that they had trouble. Well, they didn't have trouble, but they were trying to make the world consistent as the camera turned, and that's pretty cool. But at the same time, that is probably something very difficult to achieve, I think. Just like mathematically, and with the engine that they're probably using, probably has some limitations in it too. So I think that's pretty cool.
Is that you'll notice Abe's scale is changing in the relationship of the camera, where he is on screen, how big he is on screen. But the controls and the rest of the gameplay mechanics, they're all holding up consistently. And that was important so we could change the sense of dimension and how big the environmental threat looked versus how personal and intimate combat situation might be, or puzzle situation might be. Now in this scenario, we've cut out the journey where you have to go into the mines and solve a problem so you can come out and let these guys free. So we're just cutting to the guys becoming free. But you'll see here how we wanted to get a lot more characters on the screen that you would be responsible for defending at any one time. And this meant a lot of efficiency challenges that we had to face in dealing with this number of characters. And also new challenge situations that made sense out of it. And you'll see we call the silos, which is a whole series of characters are going to climb up these ladders, your laborers that you're helping, and they just become brutally vulnerable, and you need to keep them safe during their climb, or it just goes very bad. It can reach the point where it's just raining down bodies. So it can be quite stressful. And, we were a bit on the fence over, like, might that be a kind of intense, or might that be... And we just kept on coming back to, it's Oddworld. So it's kind of like we're expected to do something that's this ridiculous in terms of saving guys in dire circumstances. But that's what you need to do. So now this is what we're going to see. This is the Mudokons all have to climb to the top and ideally, save as many of them as you can before they get wiped out along the way. And so your foreground strategy is determining your glory or trauma that's happening in the background. And this scenario here is the player is going to use the followers as an extra defense to try and keep the climbers safe. So Abe's going to position them to both protect himself and defend his position, and use them to attack those that are attacking our climbers or attacking Abe. This is...
one thing I've noticed from this level, what he is doing right now, there looks like to be a lot of management. Like, did you notice that?
When you say management, what do you mean?
Like, it seems like you have to be very strategic on the approach that you take, and like you notice, like you have all these HUD elements where you're managing certain things, where the previous games, if I remember playing them, they were pretty simple. This one has an increase in complexity now. Do you see what I'm talking about, kind of?
Yeah. I guess it's difficult for me to say. I need to play through some of those older games again. Yeah. This is kind of motivating me too. The thing to know about this game is, and I had just looked it up, I was trying to see what game platform it's available on. It's not available on Steam right now. It's available on the Epic Games Store. So if you want to get it, I guess they have some type of partnership with them, and it might be for a limited time, and they're going to probably make it available on Steam, I assume. But it's also available on the consoles as well. So that's just something to note if you're interested in playing this game. There's a limitation, but at the same time, I'm also opening up to the Epic Games Store. I've gotten so many free games off of there, and I've also bought some games off there too. There are pros and cons with each game store.
True.
Where we built in the capability to be able to gift your followers whatever additional throwables you had crafted on your own. So Abe's looting, scavenging, pickpocketing, the things he collects and the things he crafts, eventually... as you get deeper into the game, you can start using those things to gift to your followers and build up a more powerful defensive or offensive force. As these climbers are trying to make it to the next rest area that we call it, they're vulnerable within the distance between where you release them from and where they're climbing to. And in the course of you releasing them, it's going to start setting off alarms. And those alarms are going to start spawning enemies out of guard towers to come out and try and stop these guys from making it all the way up to the train. Now, with each progressively more difficult section, you get access to more core vending machine craftables that you can make into more powerful things that you're gifting, using both yourself and gifting to your crew. Now, this is just cutting to a later level, showing how this end boss situation escalates as you get more powers and things get more dangerous. So this is a later level in Necrom. And what's happening here is all your skills are against the clock. So as more opposition is trying to kill the guys climbing, you only have the ability to combat the threat in the foreground, but they have to reach the top of these enormous, tall ladders so that you can reach the train until you can save them. In the meantime, in your foreground layer that you're combating, there are other Mudokons that you'll use, as we saw in the other case, and as they power up and go with you, you're also saving them along the way. But the guys on the ladders, you can't save them until they reach the top. And that's where things just continually heat up. All your skills of what you've learned in combative play against the clock, where the slower you are and the worse you do, the worse the outcome for those trying to climb the ladders.
That's really cool. I think this emphasizes the game design, how they're playing with this use of foreground and background. So you have elements you can interact with on both sides, foreground and background side. And he even mentions that in his developer commentary.
Yeah, I definitely think that the element of having, lots of things happening at the same time, but it's very consistent, is very nice. For example, like the fact that you're trying to let all the, I don't know what they're called, but the people in the back that are running away escape. That's cool. And the animation that they have, keeping it active. Because I know that, if you have maybe like one thing moving across the screen, that's kind of nice. But at the same time, you kind of lose interest in it, I think. I don't know if you know what I'm saying. And the fact that you have constant movement, and I forgot what it's called, but I think I remember reading about this, and it's something developers use as a technique, and I think it's very prevalent in like Red Dead Redemption 2, where the world is so immersive, where you're riding the horse and it's not just like the trees and stuff moving in the grass blowing in the wind or something, but you'll have some creature move across your screen, and it's like these instances that keep the player active and engaged. And like these elements that they've added in here, definitely, very much so, would probably keep people, constantly on their feet and active. Because first of all, like I was mentioning, the added element of the management system, where you're trying to make sure you have the most people escape out of this prison, is cool. And at the same time, I mean, it's something you want to achieve. You want to get the most out of it. So I mean, it's very nice.
Okay, picking back up where we previously left off at Old Trellis, where Abe is still working to guide the Mudokons to the top of the ladder, where they can reach the train and join the rest.
They're called Mudokons. I remember that.
Of those followers that have already been saved. We see Abe rescuing more Mudokons, getting good karma for it, and now he's approaching the train. On the train is when you get your final tally. We have tally screens that show you, this is something new for Oddworld, but we're showing you much more of the achievements and the exploitations that you did or didn't take fully advantage of while you were playing. So you see what you missed. You are tempted to go back and find things that you missed, or choose to play it with an entirely different approach and get a different outcome of achievements. And these tallies are happening in every level throughout the game of Soulstorm. And of course, you can then post those times and share them to leaderboards, along with all the achievements and all those scores.
Interesting.
So, what do you think, Samir?
I think I would play the game. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't buy it now,
Yeah.
personally. Wait, you just ended the stream?
Oh no. Did you have anything you want to go back on it?
No, the Twitch stream is still on. Okay, good, good.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
thought
yeah.
I got a notification saying the Twitch stream is off.
No, 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 no.
Um, I think that I personally might wait until the game comes on sale,
Mm-hmm.
just because I think I haven't played through some of the older Oddworld games. So I want to play through some of those first because I've heard really great things about them, and then maybe build my way up to this. Um, but I would understand why somebody might buy it now because I think from a game developer standpoint, it's a really interesting game. I think sometimes that's a hat that I don't necessarily put on. I have never developed a video game, but I think sometimes that's something to consider is like that's a hat that you can put on and say, okay, why was it made this way? What is the original like? What went into making the game work this way?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think personally that I would not play it just yet, just because, of course, like I would wait and see when it's on sale and the stuff about it. It just came out. Give it some
Yeah,
time. And also, personally, I think Oddworld's cool, and I'd play it if I'm extremely bored. But right now, I have other games that are occupying me, so I probably wouldn't play it at the moment and give more focus on it. So, I mean, that is probably the reason I probably wouldn't buy it right now. And, but yeah, I mean,
I think that brings up a good question. Like, what games are we actually playing right now?
right now, personally, I finished Doom Eternal's DLC, and it was pretty solid. It was fun, and it ended the Doomslayer's arc and like this his whole journey, and the
Were you satisfied with the ending?
uh, I would say yes and no. You could definitely tell that they have a lot of flaws in the DLC because it felt a little bit rushed out. But I
Mm-hmm.
do get that they left elements for um, to pick up on the next game for sure, like whatever's going to happen in the next Doom game that they create. But there is a lot of like plot holes that this game filled or the DLC filled. Um, and I'm not gonna lie, Doom isn't just about the story. It's always been about the gameplay loop. Like Doom, the reason people play Doom is because of the gameplay loop. It's more for killing demons, but the amount of times you can do it. That's why I was mentioning last time that you don't get tired of it because it feels different every time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and currently, right now, I am playing. So I went back to playing GTA 5 again, and I'm modding it right now. So I'm currently in the phase of modding the game and testing it out, and then on the side, excuse me, since I play some D&D, I got this game called Tailspire. It's like a little quick plug. I just want to give in. It's I think it's indie developed. It was a Kickstarter and it's extremely good. It's on Steam. It's a D&D software. So it's a software where you can build levels and worlds for D&D. They have free assets built into the game. It's an early access, and I think it's made by a small team, and it's amazing. It's very cool because all my D&D friends are currently purchasing it, and guess what you can do? You can actually invite people to help you build in their world. So if you have Steam friends, you build the world together, and one person is the game master who can actually give control for other people to do that. And then you can play D&D in there. So the other cool thing is there are custom maps built by people outside. One cool thing that I really like, and you can copy the image code for that world, and it's a notepad. It's almost like a sequence of codes, and paste it into your game, and it will translate the code into the world in the game for you. So basically, you can get free assets online anywhere, and it's widely being adopted right now, and it's picking up traction. So those are the games I'm playing. How about you, Samir?
That's awesome. So I've been playing mainly one game, which is Dusk.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have heard about it, but it's from the what is it? New Blood
Yeah.
Interactive,
Yep.
right?
Yep. New Blood
Um,
Interactive.
and it's a Doom style game, like a retro Doom style game.
Yep.
It is pretty fast paced. It's a retro game, and It's FPS. It has, I guess, some HP Lovecraft elements to it in terms of the aesthetic, in terms of some of the villains, some of the people you're fighting up against. Uh, and it's a really cool like shooter horror game. I like it. I need to finish Doom, so this is my like I guess my intermediary step to finishing Doom. Motivate me.
It's I have Dusk. I was playing it a little while after I finished Doom Eternal's DLC. I didn't finish it all the way through yet, but Dusk is very cool. I also played their other game, A Medieval, but I have to go back and play it. Fun fact is, since Doom recently got rid of Mick Gordon, who is a composer. So Bethesda had a falling out with Mick Gordon, and he's a composer of Doom 2016 soundtrack, the Prey soundtrack, all those soundtracks that you hear for like Doom, like the music and how consistent and nice it is. It was Mick Gordon, and they had a recent falling out, but the composer of A Medieval, and I think even Dusk, is now part of the Doom team, and he has created the new DLCs, composed music, and it's really, really good. It doesn't have the same Mick Gordon feeling because you can definitely tell the emphasis Mick Gordon put into the main story. But here's the thing: this is a DLC, so we can't fully judge it. And yeah, that was just something interesting that I found. Is I think his name's Andrew Herslet, and there's David Levy. There's another one. There's two composers working on it. But
yeah, so it's cool to see. I guess these people making really good indie games and then making it into the AAA game studios to use their talents. They're getting recruited out. They're getting recruited anywhere. They could obviously stay and still do great work, but it's nice to see them getting recognized.
Yeah, I agree. So one thing we do want to reflect on before I know this is a short podcast, and we actually never intended to be like a long podcast like the other one, but we do want to reflect on things that Professor Powers had talked about before we end. And I'll let Samir go ahead and take it from here. What is the biggest takeaway that you think that you got out of that?
Yeah, I think that as a professor, I feel like a lot of other professors should strive to be like him in terms of, combining elements of entertainment, engagement, and education.
Mm-hmm.
He had mentioned briefly to us that was part of his philosophy, prior to the podcast. That was a part of his philosophy that he tries to embody in the way he talks to students or, people he's trying to teach. So that's something that was really interesting to me, is his approach that he takes with communicating information around video games, like lessons around video games, video game design specifically. That was really cool to me. And that's like, I guess, a style that he has that I really liked and I picked up on. But I think the other thing when it comes to content, he talked about the beneficial aspects of video games to improve people's empathy, their perspective. And I thought that was really cool. And he talked about how Oddworld, Munch's Odyssey, did a pretty good job at this in terms of, bringing a perspective that people and shining a light on it that oftentimes people don't talk about. And then he talked about some other benefits of video games that were really interesting to me that I tried to get him to talk about a little bit more. But I think one big takeaway, and this is like the quote, if you look in the description for that podcast on our YouTube channel, you'll see that in that description, I put in this like key quote that he said. He said that a good life is like a good game and that both are balanced. And that is what we need to try to achieve. And I thought that was really philosophical and cool. And I was like, yo, you're combining, not only this aspect of video games, but also like, how can I reflect on video game design and how I can apply that in my personal life or, with my, professional life. So I was really, those are some takeaways that I had.
So here's the thing. I remember that quote, and I was going to say that was my biggest takeaway. I didn't even know Samir actually added that quote in onto the thing as a description. But personally, yes, I agree. A good video game is always a great balance between the world that you are in as well as the world that the game is in, and as a perfect balance. And, the biggest, in my opinion, thing from his, I would say, interview or podcast that we did with him, it was how there's empathy in the world that you build, as well as a self-reflection of yourself. And
Mm.
um,
Yeah,
the
that's key.
develop,
He, he
yeah,
he talked about the like in game development. One of our questions in the chat was like, how do I prevent video games from going so like how do you prevent video games from going stale? Like how do you keep them exciting? And he talked about how video game developers they pull from this library of experiences that they have in their head. And like you said, it could be personal experience and it could also be experience of having played so many different video games, that video game library that you have in your head of all those different types of game mechanisms you've seen. And then the other layer that was really cool that he talked about is the technology layer. So there's this personal experience layer, there's this game library layer. You know, you have a library of games you've played, and then there's this technology layer that you have as well, where sometimes you want to showcase, like Steam, Valve does an amazing job at this, where each video game, usually with like the Half Life, they're making that video game to showcase the technology they developed. For example, the recent Half Life was for them to showcase and experiment with the Valve Index,
hmm
it's their VR technology.
yeah, I totally agree with that because I think that was like the
Or
biggest
sorry, the Steam
takeaway.
Index.
Yeah, the Steam Index. Yeah, but that was my biggest takeaway was the fact that the developer is the one that's going to create it, but also what their personal experiences are. They're going to convey that in their game somehow. And guess there's another thing. This is like psychology, and it goes into like depth of psychology. But they intentionally probably don't do that. They subconsciously do it. Um, like
Mm,
there's questions in psychology that psychologists can't really understand, but
yeah.
subconsciously, when you present two different things, there's a reason behind why you pick it, but you don't know the definite reason of why you did it. And that is the reason that was like my biggest takeaway was I was like, dang, I didn't even think about that. But like, is the fact that the developer can convey their emotions, their feelings into their games, um, and embody themselves in this game. And just like he was saying, is like a game is a perfect world between real life and the game itself. It's that union, like that cohesive union that you have.
And I think that this brings up like what you just brought up brings up a conversation I think that we need to have in the future with this podcast is the psychology of video games. And we had briefly mentioned this would be a great topic to even have with Professor Powers because he has thought about these things, and part of it is like just going through the, brain cycles of thinking about this and then going, through, okay, and experimenting mentally or experimenting through, the scholarly literature, reading some of that scholarly literature to see what people have talked about this. And what you brought up is a really good point that I didn't think about is sometimes these are things that are just so done unconsciously. And as a professor or like as an academic, you try and put a name to it or a label to it. But sometimes maybe even video game developers don't even think about this stuff. They don't think about the fact that they have this, video game library mentally in their heads that they refer back to when it comes to them building a new video game. So it'll be interesting to see. And I think this is two perspectives that we can I guess go into in future podcasts is one video game psychology, aspect, but other is getting a perspective of a true video game developer right now who's working in the field and maybe who's working for an indie game studio or maybe who's working for a AAA game studio to get their perspective on some of these things.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we do hopefully, get to a point where we're able to invite developers who have worked on big AAA games in the past, and we would definitely love that. And we'd definitely love to share that with you guys because personally, for us, this is something we enjoy doing in our free time because Samir and I, grew up like same, work very similar in age, and we have the same experiences. We're both nerds. We enjoy games. And yeah, I mean, this is kind of what we like to do. And if you guys definitely want to chime in your opinion, you're always more than welcome to. You can always leave us a message on our Twitch page if you have a recommendation of a topic you guys want to hear or talk about. We have a lot of topic ideas to discuss and a lot of things, and we have a lot of big plans of having other people come on in the future on the podcast. But like mentioned before, we definitely want to keep a consistent schedule going because our goal is not only to grow but also be able to keep consistency. And going forward, we're going to try and stick to 2 weeks, like I mentioned before. And I think that will be pretty solid. They'll be very short. I think they won't be as long as the previous one. And when we do have a big one, we will definitely let you guys know in advance about it. And hopefully, schedules stay consistent and nothing changes. But if there is in the future, please forgive us. We're not trying to purposely like push things back or delay this or unintentionally, or intentionally trying to, not do a podcast because honestly, I talk about this with my other friends in Discord, but Samir and I actually enjoy doing this. And like, for example, like throughout the week, we'll talk about topics we've talked about on the podcast and we'll message each other about it, and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that one key thing if you're a viewer and you're tuning in is that we're trying to experiment this year. We're iterating on different things, and it's a process of trial and error. So please bear with us. Please, I guess, forgive us for any mistakes we might have had at the beginning of the podcast. We're still iterating. We're still improving. This has been a journey for us. Getting to this point where we're able to interview somebody who we respect, and then get their opinion. And I think that we're really excited about the end of the year. And next podcast, we're hoping we can interview somebody. And then, going forward into the rest of the year, we hope you stay with us, follow us here on Twitch, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and, just stay tuned because I think that we're going to be doing some exciting things. And we're in a process of learning. This is something that we didn't consider initially, but this is a great experience for us to learn from each other and also learn from some of our guests that we can bring on. And we hope that, you learn with us and we can get a discussion going and, we can keep the conversation going as well.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. It's a journey, and we started not early. We started halfway through the year last year, I think summer, and we started having episodes each month. And then this year, our first episode was like into the fourth month. Yeah, it was in I think late March or April. And we do apologize. We didn't intentionally want to push this episode or the start of it into the year, but we were trying to plan it just because the planning was getting pushed back because
life stuff happens.
Yeah, a lot of life stuff happened, and we don't want to get in the professor's way and like bother him, and if he has a lot of stuff going on, so that's why it took a while. But we hope to hear from everyone and what their opinions are. Please feel free to leave us critical feedback. We enjoy feedback, even if it's harsh. We definitely want to hear it, just because we want to improve our podcast and we want to improve the channel. We want to have the best quality that we can give you guys. So yeah. And do you have anything else to add to this, Samir?
No, thanks for joining us. Like I said, one more time, hit up that follow button, hit that subscription button on our YouTube channel, and just bear with us through this journey. We hope you enjoy it.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming, and we'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.